Hey guys, welcome back to UK Highland Photography. I'm Strober and today I'm going to share with you the camera settings I use when it comes to shooting nightclub photography. Now these settings I use all the time and I find them to be a perfect sweet spot for my needs. Anyway, so let's have a look at this camera settings I use then. Well, first of all, I always set my white balance to flash. This is because I'm working with flash and ambient light, if there is any in a nightclub, it's always changing. So I always set my white balance to flash. Next of all, sticking with flash, then I also make sure that I'm firing my flash on a rear curtain sync. This is because on the rear curtain sync, you absorb the ambient light and then at the end of the exposure your flash freezes your subjects. Now if you use a front curtain flash, then what happens is your flash goes off but your slow shutter speed sucks in ambient light and basically destroys the photograph of your subjects. So again, with the rear curtain flash, you're sucking in ambient light and then right at the very end your flash goes off in order to illuminate your subject. So that is why I use a rear curtain flash. Moving on, the next thing I dial into my camera is I always make sure that my image review, that's the LCD screen, I also ensure that that is set to 20 seconds to review the image. This is because if anybody asks me if they can have a look at the photograph, I can show them the photograph and the photograph will stay on screen for 20 seconds. That gives them enough time to look at the photograph. If you have your LCD screen set to like 5 seconds, by the time you've shown them and given them an LCD monitor, it's gone off. And they look back to you and they're going, it's gone off. So that's why I always make sure that my image review LCD screen is on for at least 20 seconds. Moving on, the next setting I do is the size of my photographs. For example, if you're selling keyrings which are small, then you want to use a small size of a photograph. There's no point shooting raw. If you shoot raw, then you're never going to get a raw file loaded onto your printer. Again, a keyring is small, so in that case you would choose to shoot on a small photo setting, and basically it's more efficient and helps your workflow, helps you to manage your workflow more effectively when coming to using a printer. Moving on, the next setting I play around with is the area focus mode. Now on my Nikon DSLR, this is a single select or a dynamic select option. I've got the third one, but the select and the dynamic is normally the one I play with the most. Now let me give you an example. The dynamic autofocus mode basically allows the camera to focus on the subject themselves. However, if I done that in dynamic mode, what happens is that the camera will focus here because this is closer to the camera, which means that my face will be a blur. So under them circumstances, I would switch to single select, which means that I can move my autofocus points away from this and move to the face and put the autofocus point on the face. So that's manually taking selection of your autofocus points. Again, if you leave it on dynamic, if somebody holds out their hand like that or holds a bottle, then their photograph could focus on the bottle and not actually on the face. So that's another setting I look at with regards to nightclub photography. Now moving on to my shutter speeds. I find that a shutter speed of 1/30th of a second to 1/60th of a second is ideal for helping me to capture the ambient light that is around the actual venue. So it's very rare I go past 1/30th of a second or 1/60th of a second. Moving on for your aperture. Personally, I just leave the aperture on the widest aperture possible. So if my lens is f3.5 to an f5.6 lens, I'll simply leave it on f3.5. So when I'm on 18mm, which is the widest zoom, I will have f3.5. When I zoom into 55mm, it will go to f5.6. If I zoom out again to 18mm, it will move to f3.5. Again, I will always stay on the widest aperture possible, so don't really worry about aperture. Now, moving on to ISO, then I have found that ISO of 800 to 1600 is ideal for nightclub photography. The reason being, at 800 and 1600, your photographs don't look really grainy. Remember, not only that, if you exceed very fast ISO speeds with flash, then your subject will always look overexposed. That's because the flash is very bright and ISO is very sensitive. So that is another reason why I stay between 800 and 1600 of an ISO. So basically, guys, that is really the main settings what I use when it comes to shooting nightclub photography. Also, just before I go, if I use a diffuser dome on my speed light, then I will stay around about 2/3 of an increment with regards to the exposure value on the speed light, and if it needs adjusting from there, I will manually do that on the speed light, and the speed light being on TTL. So there you go, guys. That's basically my camera settings for when it comes to shooting nightclub photography. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and when you get the time, check out the online shop over at www.ukhighland.com.